was Nietzsche who said that interpretation is a function of power and not that of truth. And by that he meant that you can interpret anything any way you like if you have the power to make your interpretation prevail. So in matters of law, well, obviously the establishment will have its own way about how, to whom the law applies, how it is to apply. And this is obviously a truism, but in events, you can also take a different interpretation of the same event. Now, in our times of pestilence, one must go back to the last time of pestilence in Europe, and it was, of course, the Black Death, when the bubonic plague was raging through Europe and devastating European communities to the extent of 20 to 65% of the European populace. This is a historical fact. Nobody denies that it killed a lot of people, and nobody can deny that it didn't stop Europeans from doing what they are known to be so good at doing, starting wars, fighting wars, taking over the world. So it wasn't really a big deal. So it is obviously a sign of degeneracy that the European of the 21st century should be behaving in this peculiar way about what can only be known as the Spanish flu, in fact, the Spanish flu actually raged during the First World War, and it was only called the Spanish flu because the media, the press of other European nations who were busily fighting each other weren't allowed to mention it for fear of demoralizing an already demoralized populace, demoralized by the First World War. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can look at the same event and be demoralized or not be demoralized by it. And you can say, well, I haven't achieved great success since I conceived of secular Quranism in 2009, which was, well, a while back, over a decade ago. And I've only got one named supporter. And so if I chose to be demoralized, I could be demoralized, but I think it has a certain power and glory because I really think it is the equivalent of Abraham conceiving of the Abrahamic God. It really, when you think about it, is the most powerful idea conceivable. It doesn't even have to be true because people want to believe in it. And really, when you think about it, it is a concept that is reachable through the exercise of reason. So one can imagine two fairly bright children creating the Abrahamic God. And this is how I see it. One child says, I can create a God, and the other child says, I can create a God too. And child number one says, my God will be better than your God. And the other will say, my God can do anything. And the other child says, my God can do everything and knows everything. And the other child says, my God can do anything and knows everything and is always right on matters of morality. And there we have the Abrahamic God. Arrived at through this process of two competitive children. Whether he actually exists is in fact irrelevant, because even if he did exist, he will not be revealing himself to us. He's not our genie. We can choose to believe in him and therefore obey his laws, or ignore his laws because we deny his existence. And this will really be the bone of contention on the eternal culture war between patriarchy and matriarchy. And what does this God have to say about the Trinity? Well, it's absurd. Yesterday, when I was talking to the pastor at the carol service that I attended, I wondered about, well, if religion were to go through some kind of marketing survey in which we were asked, like, what do you want out of your religion? What are the top 10 characteristics that you would want of your religion if you could ask for it? Well, the first would be eternal life, because that's what people want. They're afraid of death. And then the next one would be for me to be protected. And the assumption is that this person that wants to be protected judges himself worthy of protection and wishes to claim that he morally deserves to be protected because he is a good person. And so morality comes into it, and obviously you would want a omniscient and omnipotent deity to reward good and punish evil. And this would be another way of arriving at the Abrahamic God. Now, the further condition would be, apart from being a deity capable of dispensing perfect justice in this life or the next, is to be believable. Because part of the difficulty of getting people to follow the laws of any religion is because people don't believe, and therefore they think they can get away with not obeying. So we have the knowledge that previous civilizations would have the cult of the emperor. We know that the Chinese did it and the Japanese did it. Well, actually not the Chinese, it was the Japanese who claimed their emperor to be divine, and the Ptolemies, the Egyptian pharaohs, the Roman emperors. But the Romans were at least sensible in that they didn't claim that a living emperor was divine until after he was dead. But anyway, the problem was that nobody believed in it. And that, I believe, was the reason why Constantine the Great decided to use the story of Christianity to bolster his failing religion. We know that the Romans didn't really have that much to regulate the morals of their rulers. We know Stoicism was just basically putting up with stuff. And it was a philosophy favoured by philosophers, the teachers, the tutors of the imperial tutees, I suppose. Seneca was made to commit suicide by Nero, wasn't it? Something like that. So the best thing that the aristocracy of Rome could do was to put up with being unjustly accused, unjustly tried, unjustly convicted by the emperor, who maybe it was only accusing them because he didn't like what they said or wanted their property, so he had to kill them first in order to inherit their property. So the wealthy also suffered, and the wealthy were educated, and I don't think they felt they could do anything other than to put up with it, because I suppose in theory they could flee, but Rome was such an extensive empire that there didn't seem much point. It would be a bit like, well, Julian Assange trying to flee the oppression of the American empire. Edward Snowden did a sensible thing by seeking a asylum in Russia, and perhaps if Julian Assange had thought things through carefully, he might have gone for China, but maybe the Chinese might have handed him to the Americans because they didn't want any trouble, as the Ecuadorian embassy did. So I guess if you were a Roman aristocrat, you didn't really have much choice but to put up with the indignity of being falsely accused by your emperor for one reason or another, and be made to open your veins for some trumped up charge or another. So really the Roman aristocracy didn't have that much to protect them, except to go to their deaths with dignity and nobility. And really, the cult of Christianity didn't really help stop the Roman Empire from declining, because we know it did, and we know the barbarians came and invaded, and Rome fell in the 500s. Apparently, it wasn't even much of an invasion; they just walked in and took over. In probably the same way that Britons now feel that the illegal immigrants just walk in, and soon they will be taking over. And you can see that many of the members of the Johnson cabinet are not what you would call white and indigenous. So this is happening even now. It is interesting that Ralph can't debate this rationally, and he feels he has to take down my channel. And I could well be very demoralized and think, oh dear, it's one thing after another. I haven't achieved great success, and Ralph wants to destroy my channel. But really, if I thought of it in another way, it would actually be quite cheering. I'm reminded of what Hitler said when, apparently, okay, I can't, maybe I just imagined it or something, but I have this memory of reading that Hitler was asked, as you would expect, successful politicians of the time, the media would ask them, like, was there a time when you felt despairing, when you didn't think you would ever achieve great success? Mein Führer, that kind of, question, the sycophantic questions that journalists would ask of successful politicians in charge of the ship of state. And my memory of his answer was that, well, the worst time I had was when nobody bothered to attack me. That was the worst time, not when they tried to shut us down and tried to invade our meetings and tried to beat us up. No, no, no. That was the best time. The worst time was when nobody at all bothered to oppose us. And so I must thank Ralph from the bottom of my heart for his, well, quite clear intention of wanting to destroy my channel. Because because I am such a threat to Christianity. It's quite a thought. And so it is true, I think, that the greatest compliment that you can possibly get is a backhanded compliment from your sworn enemy who has sworn to destroy you. I am apparently worthy of a concerted attempt of reports and strikes to silence me and my secular Quranism forever. I know that because of the power and glory of secular Quranism, it is not so easily destroyed. An idea, when it becomes simple to understand, whose potential is really indisputable, will not just die, because ideas don't die. They're not people, they're not creatures, they're not dogs or cats or babies or old men. An idea will just keep trucking on if it's useful, particularly if it's scary to people who are easily frightened. Because even if I were to die, I don't think secular Quranism will die. Even if Ralph wanted to have me assassinated, that would be the supreme compliment. It would mean, well, only powerful people get assassinated, right? Emperors and presidents and prime ministers and politicians and the like. So that would be a great compliment indeed, and I would look upon it as a great compliment from Ralph. So this is the thing about ideas. They can't really be suppressed. You can try, and you might succeed for a while, but eventually it'll pop up again. So I think the ending of this year, this run up to Christmas, has been really quite successful, and I thank Ralph very much for his attempts to destroy my channel. I don't know, Kiri Elison, if he has removed the strikes. I think it doesn't expire until let me just check while I'm here. The thing is, I don't really notice because, okay, I'm on my secondary channel with only 52 subscribers, but I guess, I keep getting things off my chest and maybe I don't notice. Sometimes I the strike has expired and I think, oh, right, so it's actually expired and I didn't really notice because I continue to get things off my chest. You know when Twitter give this, when they trick you into thinking that you're tweeting to your followers when you're really only tweeting to yourself because you've been shadow banned. That was when I was on Twitter. And this is part of the therapy that we think we have when we express ourselves, and then we feel better because we let it out. It's better out than in. And I've also noticed that there are people who post away. People who who delete their streams, because it's like, yeah, I managed to get it off my chest. I can delete my stream now because I don't want a community strike, a hate speech strike. No, the active copyright strike is still there. And let me just check when it's supposed to end. 4th of March. Sixth of March. So it's still there. So Ralph is threatening a third one, and that is supposed to that would delete the channel. So I thank other haters like Seamus Crawford, who obviously thinks my channel has entertainment value, and he doesn't particularly approve of Ralph narrowing the range of his entertainment. So that's nice. Thank you, Seamus Crawford. Let's see what else has come up since I went out and came back from the shops. Yeah, that's what he said. Well, that's what Seamus said. What the fuck, bro? Why are you striking the channel? This bitch is so insane. We need the content. So, Ralph seems to want me to go on TikTok. I pride myself on my brevity. I think it might be a little superficial to go on TikTok. So, I'll find a way. But yeah, if I go, it'll be because Ralph is afraid of secular Quranism and he wants to protect his incel brigade from secular Quranism. And fine. I'm not really a YouTuber. I am doing YouTube now, but that's only incidental to my main occupation of being a political activist. So this is incidental, to what I do. I know a lot of people they get into the YouTube thing and they care about their subscribers and they don't want to piss them off and they want their super chats and if I were like that, then I think I'll just be talking the useless shit that the others talk about, right? They can't actually say what they need to say, and that's why they can't get anywhere. That's why they can't organize a piss up in a brewery. Now, I haven't actually been able to keep up with millennial woes. So has anybody been able to keep up, and have you listened to any streams that you think, wow, this is great, this is going to be the answer for the future of the West? Yeah, I think TikTok is too superficial. It's I know it's only 1 minute, isn't it? Have I been putting up the Christmas cards? Well, every year it gets fewer and fewer. So basically what I've done is I've just responded to all the Christmas cards I've got, and it's not very many. I guess tomorrow there'll be a few more. And I think it's a bit sad. But okay, what I'll do is I'll ring people up, so if anybody I've forgotten and not responded to their cards, or it might be too late. I guess, I'll make up for that. And I think the important thing really is to keep in touch, talk to people, find out how they are, and maybe the guilt you have for not not sending them a card, and then you got one, and it's too late to send one. That's okay. As long as you do it. And yeah, sometimes for decorations, it's like, well, maybe I need to get a few from last year to kind of, make it look like there's lots that because in previous years there was this like who's this card from? I don't even know who they are, and then maybe it's a kind of a thing of age. I guess young people don't really send cards; they just send electronic greetings through their smartphones, and I suppose it's expensive, right? How much is a second class stamp? I bought a book of 12, and yeah, it's over what 60p now or something. Second class stamps. I mean, when was the last time people sent a letter, right? How much is a second? 66p. In a way, you're kind of showing yourself out by saying, I remember a time when the second class stamp was, X number of p. It used to be, the penny postage. It started with a 1p. So first class stamp is now, whoa, 85p. I think it's 85p. 85p! Wow. But that's to do with economies of scale because the fewer people who send it, then it just increases the cost of it. It's like going to gym, right? If you pay your membership, your monthly membership for the gym, and you go every day, then obviously it's quite cheap when you think about it. But if you never go, or if you just go once and you pay 250 quid or something for your gym membership or something stupid like that, then well, your only visit in the month is 250 quid. So um so this stream is really to thank Ralph for doing me the compliment of wanting to destroy me. Um, right. Gary asks, any more interesting guests? I do have somebody coming up for you, and um, it's supposed to be on the 22nd, so not much longer. And any one of you who fancies talking about anything, just let's remember the format of Karani Yule. It's all about you. It's all about your bee and your bonnet, and my role, is not to shove secular Quranism down your throat, but to facilitate the propagation of your message and your concern. So I've already said to Ralph, you can come on Karani Yule and you can talk shit about secular Quranism, and I will even help you do that. That's what I'll do. That's how generous I am to my opponents. But he's not doing that because he's scared, because he knows he can't win the argument. So that's why he feels he needs to, well, metaphorically burn me at the stake, right? What talents do I have? Oh, I don't know. I think I'm probably quite good at um well, I think I'm quite good at arguing. I guess if I, taken the proper path on my legal career, it's possible I could be some appeal court judge, with the hope of becoming a Supreme Court judge and maybe the president of the Supreme Court. Maybe, I don't know. If I mind my P's and Q's and shut up about what I really think about stuff, I guess I could go far. I know you think I'm boasting, but well, somebody, well, it was years ago. It was Hugh Muir who was saying, well, you could have a career in the BBC if you gave up your views. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. Thanks, because I just hate myself. And the thing is, what you do when you do this sort of thing is that you commit to it in the end, because if you decide, the vaccines is the same thing. Once you've had your jabs, then you want to think that you did the right thing, and you will kind of be looking askance at people who didn't do it, like, oh, well, maybe you could kill Granny if you visited her. Don't you want to visit your Granny? And if you did, wouldn't you kill her? Don't you think because once you do something, once you've done something, whether you wanted to or not, you'll want to think that, maybe it was all right for it to, for me to do it. And a good example would be marriage or having children. So, once you're married, you think, well, I can't just divorce him, because everybody will think I'm stupid. I can't stick to my marriage vow. So you have to make yourself think that it was the right thing to get married, and then you start popping out kids, and then you think, maybe I hate my kids, but I can't say that. I have to pretend that I was happy I got married, I was happy I have children, and you have to think yourself into thinking it was a good thing. My wedding day was great. My children are wonderful. They have a great future ahead of them. I love them, and and I support the institution of marriage. So really, we end up committing to things that we have done, even though maybe our marriages are abusive, our children are no good. But for the sake of our own preservation, we might deny all these things and make the best of things. A good example would be, this is the first time I read about it, from a psychology book. So this was about cults, and basically you commit to a cult. Okay, before you commit to a cult, you're thinking, should I, shouldn't I? It sounds like it could be fun, but I'm not really sure, and I might lose my friends and my family, and they'll think I'm a bit weird, and then you hesitate. But if you do choose to join Jim Jones and go to, he went to Guatemala, didn't he? He took them on a plane, and he took them to somewhere in Guatemala, and they set up some kind of commune, and then he eventually got them to drink the Kool-Aid. But you see, when before you decide to join Jim Jones, you're not sure. But once you get on the plane, you have to believe in it fully and wholly, to make your life bearable, right? That's what you have to do. So in the same way that, this would have the same effect on us as regards, vaccines, marriages, our children, we have to think that it was worthwhile, that we are glad we were born, that on the whole we have enjoyed more pleasure than pain in our pathetic little lives, that the political causes that we support are somehow noble and meritorious, even when everyone around us is laughing at us and mocking us for our low status and margin and social marginalization. So ultimately, we don't really know, and we hope somebody does, and somebody cares, and somebody will reward good and punish evil. And so we come to the subject of God. And I'm saying you will eventually commit to it once you decide to obey his laws. This is the thing. This is the slippery slope to belief. And I know that is it, as always, its intended effect. Of course, your right to freedom of belief will be absolutely guaranteed, because that's the only way that it could become acceptable. And also, it just wouldn't be practical to go around policing people's thoughts. It's like, yeah, you believe what you like as long as you obey the law, and so you wouldn't be able to get away with being unmarried parents. But yeah, the occasional act of idolatry would be allowed, because secular Quranism would have to allow churches and Hindu temples and the like to remain in existence, because otherwise people will just reject it. And there is no point anyway to stop people from becoming practicing their idolatry, because the real problem of idolatry is disobedience. People thinking that maybe my way is better than God's way, and this could extend to interpreting God's laws. So even with idolatry strictly forbidden, it wouldn't actually help. And also because believing Muslims and believing Jews could stray into idolatry. This means that you won't really have the moral right to close down churches and smash people's idols. You really have to respect their property, and hope that eventually they'll just give it up, because it's so stupid, right? That's all you can do. You can hope for in time people will just give up their beliefs, because it's no longer mainstream. They yeah, when it's no longer mainstream, people will give it up, because people will want to do what it is advantageous for them to do, and the drive to assimilate and to become mainstream is frankly irresistible, and that's what's basically happened to the Jews. And now, most of them are assimilated and liberal, without realizing that liberalism is the problem for Gentiles. I mean, if Gentiles already have a problem with liberalism, and you're a Jew promoting liberalism, well, they're just going to hate you even more. And I think maybe more and more of them are beginning to understand it now. So I'm on the whole quite optimistic about people eventually seeing it from my point of view. I mean, I do see, the stickiness of my ideas. It's as Jen Sharp said to me once, you can't unthink it. It's something that you want to unthink, but you can't. Hello, Diana. I should have been an imam. They don't have female imams. I guess I could be quite good being a motivational speaker, maybe. Thank you, Diana, for saying channel striking over opinions is immature. I don't mind Ralph looking a bit immature, do I? No, I don't. Gary likes Germans. I like Germans too. And in fact, Ralph is in Berlin. Dual citizen says, striking the channels of others is indeed juvenile behaviour. Yes, that, and then also it would endanger yours. It's kind of like people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I suppose Ralph was, hoping to bounce me into, privating all my streams or whatever. That I know he does that, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do it, because, being driven into a corner where you censor yourself is precisely the position that they want you to do. That they don't want to even censor you anymore. They want you to censor yourself, and they want to make you. They want to humiliate yourself into deleting that tweet. You know, that's what Twitter used to do. You delete that tweet, and then you can start posting again. Do it, do it, do it, and people eventually do. Um, okay. I'm trying to work out what Jules Citizen is trying to ask. Do you endorse Ralph's proclamation that young English boys present the greatest potential terrorist risk in the UK? Well, I suppose terrorists would be male, whatever their race. It's a male thing, although occasionally you get the odd female, because really the culture war is about patriarchy and matriarchy. It is about um, prioritizing the female preference, which is clearly driving men mad. And obviously, when men have the monopoly on violence, and that's why the matriarchy is so nervous, because enough men might just one day say no, we're not doing this anymore. But then not many men are self-aware enough to realize that the culture war is about whether to remain a matriarchy, which is a status quo, or to restore the patriarchy. And my position is that if you care about the long-term national interest, you would have to restore the patriarchy, because you won't get anything done. You won't get your ethno-state. You won't even get a government that governs in the national interest if you don't restore the patriarchy. And by this, I mean that you would have to privilege married parents over non-parents, and non-parents over unmarried parents who would be treated as sex offenders. So this is the basic hierarchy of the patriarchy. So it's not really about men and women, but obviously men would retain control if they are married fathers, and married fathers get the respect that they ought to have, because they do more work. They protect and provide for the same woman who is their wife and the mother of their children, and in this way they produce a better quality next generation. When really, of course, the average male would really like to just go around pumping and dumping women, and not paying for their bastard children. So this problem of degeneracy would be solved, under secular Quranism, which would criminalize unmarried parents, whom I know are currently in the majority, but we can change people's minds once enough people understand what the problem is. And I think it won't be that long now. It won't be that long. Um, has there been any sign of this realization in millennial? I thought the James Delingpole discussion was quite interesting. I mean, James Delingpole, he used to be mainstream, you see. I didn't really think much of him. I mean, I did have some um, exchanges with him by email, and I think he was trying to interest himself in my ideas, but I was going too far from him, because I was already then talking about a one-party state or, a one-party theocracy, and he thought it was a bit much. And I noticed when he was on Millennial that he was talking about Christianity, which suggests that he doesn't quite get it. And I have contacted him and invited him to discuss it on Qur'an-EU, but he may not, for all the predictable reasons that men don't want to talk to me, the men who want to identify as Christian. But, it's not a problem. I can talk to others. And the thing is, if you really care about the future of your Western nation, you'd have to acknowledge that you need a moral system, and then you'd have to acknowledge that Christianity is kaput, and acknowledge the let's say top 5 criteria of religion choosing, right? So you have to choose the most powerful deity conceivable, and then we see Abrahamic God. You just, what can you do? You can't choose a less powerful deity because it wouldn't make any sense. It's like your enemy has the most powerful gun, the most powerful weapon, and you're going to choose something less powerful? Are you crazy? You have to choose, you have to choose something more powerful. If there's nothing more powerful, then you have to choose for the same, same thing that your opponent has. And then what other criteria? You would want a living God who occasionally answers prayers, right? That's part of the power and glory of the Abrahamic God, that he's a living God. He knows our hearts and minds, and he occasionally answers prayers and performs miracles. Thirdly, he is a God that rewards good and punishes evil, either in this life or the next. You want that. I know you do. Thirdly, you want preferably, we want to live a nice life in this life on this earth. And I'm saying, if you follow God's laws, your society will improve in morality and prosperity and stability. So, that's another reason for adopting secular Quranism. And finally, the fifth one is that you want the rules to be clear, and the Quran is the best available guide to humanity. And it's really as simple as that. I mean, I just don't see what the problem is. All this sort of crying and mewing and retching and tantrums from Ralph. And I think, ultimately he knows he can't argue against it, and that's why he has to resort to these tactics. He can't win the argument using truth, logic, and morality, and therefore he has to get YouTube to delete my channel. Thank you for showing how helpless you are in the face of the power and glory of secular Quranism. And yes, I do understand it's a sticky idea, and even if I disappeared off the earth, on the face of the earth, now there will be the memory of secular Quranism, and that cannot be destroyed. Because in a way, it's so obvious, isn't it? It's as obvious as 2 and 2 equals 4. Okay, so it seems I haven't properly answered the question. Let me see. I don't know what Tinkle Tink is saying. Diana says, the lack of integration, which includes adopting to a certain degree and respecting the culture, can cause all kinds of negative developments to different degrees of extremes in young people. Well, if it's young men who are most upset, I mean, they're the ones, most prone to reckless actions and violence. And, you basically need a culture that channels the energies of youth into something constructive. And, we have a degenerate culture, and you're not doing that. Dual Citizen says, anyone who has even the most tangential relationship with the truth understands that the vast majority of such incidents are not perpetrated by white lads. Yes, I know you're saying most terrorist incidents are committed by brown people. But the liberal establishment are bigging up the fear of, white supremacist, domestic terrorist violence. And they mean basically, anyone who dissents from the matriarchy. I'm sorry I haven't answered your question, dual citizen, but maybe I didn't understand it. And maybe you need to keep asking it again and again until finally I answer it. But I tried. Okay. That's really all I wanted to say about what's the title of it? The greatest compliment that Ralph has paid to me, being that he wants to destroy my channel, to crush secular Quranism. And if he succeeded, it would mean that the spores of secular Quranism will spread ever wider. Thank you all for listening.